But meanwhile, on an even deeper moral level, I want us to come back to the United States of America and consider what happened when the Vice President of the United States in recent days visited an abortion clinic. Now, if I could describe this just in a very short phrase, I would simply refer to this as Kamala visits the death camps. Now, I know some may consider those words incendiary, but I want you to know I state them with intentionality and I believe them. I believe it was one of the most reprehensible political acts in all of American political history when you had the sitting Vice President of the United States visit an abortion clinic, in this case a Planned Parenthood facility in Minnesota, precisely to celebrate what goes on there. The historic turn is reflected in the fact that the White House itself is claiming that no president or vice president in American history had, during their tenure in office, visited an abortion clinic. I'm almost certain that's true because even as you come up to just the modern era, even as you come into the 21st century, abortion still had such a stigma to it that you had Democratic candidates in the Democratic Party basically head over heels for abortion rights, but they were trying in every way not to say the word, and they certainly weren't going to abortion clinics. But you see here the unfolding logic of the Biden administration and the Democratic Party and the political left in the United States. They are absolutely convinced that abortion is a winning issue for them politically, and that means winning at the ballot box. It means winning elections. And let's just be honest, if you look at the electoral contests that have taken place, especially at the state level, since the Dobbs decision reversing Roe v. Wade was handed down in June of 2022, it is at this point an unbroken line of successes for the abortion rights movement and, where applicable, to the Democratic Party, and a comprehensively long list of losses for the Republican Party in a partisan contest and for the pro-life movement in general. Every single one of them lost. Now, one big question is why, and we'll turn to that not only later today, but in many days to come. But we also need to understand the what. And the what right now is that the Democratic Party sees the what of abortion as its way forward, a major way. One of the very few ways forward as they look, for example, at the challenge of reelecting President Biden and Vice President Harris in the November election. But it's not just the top of the ticket, the White House. It is also statewide races for governorships and for the United States Senate, and perhaps even more importantly, for the United States House of Representatives. Key races the Democrats think they can win, and they think it's such a winning issue that they're actually trying to attach it in referenda or in citizen initiatives to put abortion on the ballot in one way or another because they think it will bring out more Democratic or likely Democratic voters, regardless of who the candidate might be. And that just tells you how dark this is. It also tells you that another dark development is that the White House has been right up front. The president himself has been right up front in assigning the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, the first woman elected as Vice President of the United States of America, as the point person for the administration in pushing the abortion rights argument. You know, very interestingly, it's not just that Kamala Harris visited an abortion clinic in recent days. It's that the White House is facing criticism from the Democratic left. We discussed this already on the briefing, for the fact that even as he was pushing a radical vision of abortion rights in the State of the Union address, he didn't use the word abortion. And the abortion rights folks, the people on the left who still are marching left, they now believe that the American people are ready to support abortion rights in a comprehensive way, and they want to use the word abortion. And so Kamala Harris, not only is it about now the use of the word abortion, it's about visiting an abortion clinic. And I don't think too much can be made of this. So let me just state that. I don't think that it's overblown to say that this is an issue of vast seismic moral importance. Because in one sense, it's like a barrier has been crossed, a wall has been breached. And you look at this and you recognize, well, it's now far more likely that a visit to an abortion clinic is going to become a normal part of the campaign strategy, a normal part of the staged events for Democratic candidates for the White House. And that's a massive development. It's a really dark development. It tells us that the culture of death is winning and pressing its cause to such an extent in the United States that one of the two major political parties has decided basically to live in the culture of death and to go visit the death camps, the abortion clinics of the culture of death, and to do so in staged public events for maximum public effect. Now, just in the raw politics, the math of the election process, it comes down to the fact that the White House and the Democratic strategists are absolutely convinced that the number of people who will be turned off by that visit that might be winnable by the Democratic candidate are vastly outnumbered by the ones who are possible voters of the Democratic candidate who will be won over to the cause because of abortion. Now, I stated that very carefully. It's not as if either candidate or either party, it's not Joe Biden, it's not Donald Trump, it's not the Democrats or the Republicans who think they have a shot at, say, 100% of the electorate. As a matter of fact, neither of them actually believes that he has a shot or that the party has a shot for 60% of the vote. How's that for a shocking fact? Neither party expects to get 60% of the vote. They certainly aren't expecting a landslide. What they want to do is win, knowing that the win will be by a thin margin. But it is a very, very big thing that the Democrats have decided that one central issue, perhaps the central issue that will get them over the edge for that electoral win, is the issue of abortion. So what happened when the vice president visited the abortion clinic there in Minnesota? Well, she said some words. The head of the Planned Parenthood Center said some words. Other Planned Parenthood figures said some words. Maybe we need to pay a little bit of attention to those words. Here's what the vice president said, quote, "These attacks against an individual's right to make decisions about their own body are outrageous and in many instances just plain old immoral. How dare these elected leaders believe they are in a better position to tell women what they need, to tell women what is in their best interest? We have to be a nation that trusts women," end quote. So there you see one particular angle on this, but, words matter. Words especially matter to us. So let's go look at these words for a moment. First of all, she spoke about an attack against an individual's right to make decisions about their own body. Well, let's just say that in any normal circumstance, this would be a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And in any normal political presentation, the same words would have applied. So now we're talking about people because, of course, the Democratic Party has to include all those who might be designated by that party according to the new gender ideologies, pregnant people. But, the Democratic Party wants it both ways because they want to completely sell out to the LGBTQ movement. At the same time, they want to identify women as a key constituency. And so they get back to women here pretty fast. She leaves the there to her pretty fast, or at least talking about women. She ended that statement by saying we have to be a nation that trusts women. So all of a sudden, people who might be pregnant now, they return to being women. Anyway, the next statement she made was she spoke of the individual's right, quote, to make decisions about their own body. Well, again, the big issue here is not what's present, but what's absent. What's absent is a who. What's absent is the unborn child. The unborn child is simply absolutely ignored, absolutely unspoken, absolutely unmentioned. And it's not just that they say that a woman has rights, even if there is a human being, a baby, a fetus, whatever word they want to use inside her. No, they simply ignore altogether the existence of the child. And that is so morally significant. We're going to have to come back to this again and again and again. When someone like Kamala Harris just speaks of a pregnant person, an individual's right to make decisions about their own body, we have to be the people who have the moral reflex to say, hey, there are at least two bodies of unspeakable moral consequence here. But then, and I have to wonder if the vice president regrets using this particular language, she slipped into a certain kind of discourse. She got kind of wound up in energy, and she spoke about many instances in which she said it's, quote, just plain old immoral. Now, she uses very interesting language there, just plain old immoral. She's speaking here about restrictions on abortion, being plain old immoral. Well, you know what? If you're going to raise the issue of plain old immoral, we might want to understand what throughout virtually all of American history was considered immoral. And until 1973, that included abortion. And that was a very clear moral determination. And that's been true going backwards. You could go back to some of the ancient medical texts where it was very clear that abortion was seen as immoral. You could go back to the Didache, one of the earliest forms of Christian teaching in the earliest ages of the church after the apostles, and you will find there that Christians were told that they must abhor abortion. And so if you're going to talk about plain old immoral, you better be talking about plain and old and immoral. That's an argument that, if understood in any honest sense, completely backfires on the one who made it, in this case, the Vice President of the United States. It's her comment, actually, about plain old immoral that is plain old immoral. But she ended that statement by saying we have to be a nation that trusts women. And again, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is getting a woman's vote. That's what it's all about. And by the way, it's not just a women's vote, it's a pro-abortion vote. And let's face it, there are an awful lot of men for whom abortion is a big convenience. It's a very dark truth, but it's a truth we need to recognize. The New York Times got it right when the reporters said, quote, "The image alone of the nation's second-ranking leader walking into an abortion clinic provided a vivid illustration of how the politics of abortion rights had transformed since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade," end quote. And indeed, that's exactly what is demonstrated here. The politics of the issue were made very clear by Celinda Lake. She, by the way, is a very prominent pollster working for the Democrats. She said, quote, speaking of abortion, by the way, quote, "It's the number one issue working for Democrats at every level in office. Everything from county commissioners to presidents are being elected around this issue," end quote. Once again, let's just take the moral weight of that at face value for a moment and recognize we're being told here by a Democratic strategist and pollster that the number one issue from county commissioner all the way to the White House is the issue of abortion. It's not as if it's conservative Republicans or conservative Christians making this charge. This is stated as a matter of strategy by a very prominent Democratic figure. By the way, the vice president was not alone going to the abortion clinic, the Planned Parenthood Center there in Minnesota. She was joined by Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and also a Democratic member of Congress, Representative Betty McCollum. The bottom line in all of this is that it is almost impossible to exaggerate the moral importance, the devastating moral significance of the Vice President of the United States turning to visit an abortion clinic, a Planned Parenthood center, and to do so in the midst of a campaign for re-election. What that leads to, on our part, is a very humbling understanding of the challenge we now face. Of course, life and death are hanging in the balance, but we now know that the challenge is even greater than we had dreamed.